I'm going to tell you right now, this is not a sermon that I wanted to preach. We were in this series on masks, relational masks, and the internal masks that we wear that separate us from healthy relationships with other people and certainly from a healthy relationship with God. And we've talked about the different kinds of masks. Some are self-blamers. And whatever they do, however, it's going to come back to them, and they're going to blame themselves for whatever. Some are saviors, and these are the ones that come riding in to the rescue. We've got avoiders, those that are going to duck and cover no matter what. We've got several different masks. Today I want to look at the aggressor. The aggressor. And I'll just tell you on the front end why. This is a real uncomfortable sermon. And for some of you, it's going to be, for someone in here, it might be painful because you might know this person, you might live with this person, you might have experienced this person. I took my first youth ministry position in the summer of 1980. Did youth ministry work for several years, and then because of an aggressor and admittedly, what I call my young man stupid years. I left the church for a while and came back and began working with the church again in fall of 1989 and have been serving the church either in staff positions or as a pastor since. I've done church for a lot of years, and in those years, I have worked for some people, some great and amazing saints, and I've worked for some people who were pains in the butt. I mean, truthfully. And there's people who probably say that about me, and there are probably people that would say that about you. And in those experiences, I've had some congregation members, lots and lots of saints. And let me say this, all of the faithful, all those who believe in Jesus Christ and confess Him as Savior and Lord, all of those qualify under the broad definition of saint. Now, I've worked and some of those folks in the church, they might be technically saints, but they're a pain in the butt. And you have sat down the row from them, or you've been in a class with them, or perhaps, and let me tell you, sometimes those pains in the butt drove people out of the door. And my home church, well, I'll give you a quick example. My home church, when I was growing up, we had 750 in Sunday school. Big church. Big church. On a good Sunday now, they worship 100 to 150. It's a sick church. Has been for 20-something years now. Aggressors cause the majority of that. Let's just start here. You might be an aggressor if you can't stand people who don't take action. You're all about the doing. You're all about the going. You might be an aggressor if you have a scary temper. I said this morning, and I've said in other groups, I lost my temper so bad one time, my youngest ran and hid under a bed. I'm not saying that because I'm proud of it. It's not even funny. You have lots of opinions, and you're not afraid to share them. You have lots of arguments with people. Even when you relax, you run yourself ragged because you can't stop. You can't give anybody a chance to catch up, to get around you. For the folks who are really involved in church, you believe ministry, being in ministry, is more important than being in worship. It's the doing. You can't sit still. The aggressor, we tend to think that they are operating from a position of temper, and we think that they are operating from a position of meanness. Let me tell you where they're coming from. They are operating from a place of fear. The aggressor, and just because you have a strong personality does not make you an aggressor. But the aggressor, and as we're going to talk about a little bit more for the next several minutes, we're going to talk about this some more. But the aggressor operates out of a position of fear. Now, not fear on the outside, You see, one thing that every single aggressor holds in common is that they have been wounded. They have been hammered. They have been hurt. Every single one. Now, they may not tell you, and as I've said before, and I'll say again, parents, if you still have children at home, you need to shift gears if this applies to you, because sometimes I think I tell you the same stories, but I think sometimes you need to hear pieces, and I'm nowhere close to what I would qualify as the saint in the church. I'm the preacher. I am a pain in the butt sometimes. My children will tell you that. When Carla and I were dating, one of the first things my mom told her is, "You don't understand. He will hurt you with his words." I wish I had been smart enough or quick enough then to look at her and say, "I wonder where I learned that." And I wish that she could have turned around in that hypothetical situation and say, "From my mom or my dad or whoever." I imagine that pattern of behavior goes back multiple generations. And we pop off at each other and we say things that cut. We say things that hurt. Now, I've touched base on parenting. Watch how you speak to your children, because it will carry forward. And watch how you treat your spouse. Now, this one's worthy of a soapbox, and I imagine that most folks in here would get on the soapbox with me. There is zero excuse in a marriage, none whatsoever, for a person to become physically aggressive with the other. None. None. And if you're in that situation, my heart bleeds, my heart breaks for you, and you need to tell someone. You need to get help, and that can go both ways. I've heard in marriages where it's the woman who's the physically, she'll throw stuff. And I've seen the results of men that would hit women. I imagine if you get a hold of the sheriff's office or the local police department, I imagine they can give you all sorts of examples. There's never an excuse for that. But there's also a different kind of aggression that happens in the marriage. And it goes beyond the marriage. Sometimes it's words. Sometimes it is passive aggressive. You hear something and you respond with a non-response. Or without using words, without having a big conversation or being open or being honest, you act in opposition. I'll tell you, that's where the majority of affairs come from. The majority of affairs, men, women, whichever way you want to go, it's usually a passive-aggressive response to an unhealthy marriage. Here's some of the things that aggressors say. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. Now, you know the translation to this, don't you? It's got to be my way, because I'm good. I know the answer. This is the way it's got to be. This is the way we're going to go. If you don't do it, I will. You ever worked for this person? This person, ever worked with this person? You married to this person? You know this person? Here's one. Rest is for the weak. That one doesn't apply to me. I like to rest. Although I can remember being in the Army. I can remember, in more than one occasion, you can sleep when you're dead. Here we go. This one, I don't care what you think. This is the way it is. You know what we're saying when we say that? You, not your opinion, you're saying you don't count. You don't count. For the church folks, for the folks who are really involved in church again, we were saved to serve. So we got to do it all. You can never stay home. I know what I'm doing. I've said that before, right when I passed the exit where I was supposed to get off. I think most folks have. About 30 miles later, I know what I'm doing. Yeah. And this one, again, to moms and dads, grandparents, or whoever's dealing with it. I'm going to make those kids obey. Those are frightening words. Those are frightening words. I want you to hear again that from that piece of Scripture. As I said, it comes out of a place of fear. And if this is scratching somewhere inside your spirit or inside your head, I want you to hear this. Jesus came so that through his death, he would destroy the one who has the power of death. That is the devil, that is Satan. Here's your phrase. To free those who all their lives were held in slavery by the fear of death. Fear. It's fear for most folks is the fear of abandonment. To be someone to tell you, you're not worthy, you're not worth my time, you're not worth my love, you're not worth my attention, you're not worth whatever, insert word here. And so you leave or you fight so that nobody can get close enough to do that to you. Jesus died so that you did not have to do that. I'm telling you, you can come to a place of safety. You can come to a place where you don't have to fight anymore. Now, a lot of the aggressors, and hear this, a lot of the aggressors have strong personalities. I mean, strong personalities. I am not a horse person. I think it's the world's most expensive hobby. Beautiful animals, but both of our daughters took riding lessons, and it was always amazing to watch these powerful, powerful animals that have more than enough power to overwhelm any man or woman. But the power becomes controlled. The power when you've got I don't know how much a horse weighs, 1,000 pounds, whatever. And you put a little 100-pound teenage girl on the back. And she can take the reins, and she can make that horse do whatever she wants. Because that horse has been corralled, and the horse has been tamed, and that horse's power, every bit of it is still there. But it's controlled. That horse gives its control to the person on the back. For you powerful personalities in here, I want you to hear me. For you that have the powerful, strong personalities in here, you don't have to have that wall that says, I can fight and I must fight. You can still have that strength of personality and allow God to move within you and through you. You do not have to be somebody else. Actually, what you're invited to do is to not have that eternal fight anymore. Here's some of the things that aggressors do. Notice that first line, speak the truth, is in quotes. I'm just telling them what they need to hear. I'm just giving them the facts. No matter who gets hurt. Excel at work, but fail at rest. Constantly going, can't they? Because if you stop, somebody might get close. So they keep themselves on the go. Always going. Now, if I use the word countenance, a lot of you know what I'm talking about, but let me share with you to make sure everybody's on the same page. Your countenance is kind of the general affect that your face shows. I have a bad habit. Some of it is just structural, and some of it is habit. When I'm listening closely to somebody, you know what I do? I frown, and I drop my head a little bit, and I'm paying attention, and, it makes me look like a not nice person. That's a person's countenance. That's their face. Have you ever seen that person in Walmart or at Bi-Lo or wherever it is that, wherever, just out in the community, in school, in the hallway, at work? You can tell their mood by their face. they're having a bad day, it's written all over them. They've been hurt. They've lost somebody close. You can see it on their face. They're angry. You can see it on their face. They're having a good day. You can see it on their face. Sometimes the aggressor offends others by their attitude. You see it in their face, and they will push against you. From the time that you meet, they're going to try to control every part of that relationship. If they control it, you can't get into it. They always see themselves as right. They truly believe that they're right. They always have to be right. Or they always have to be right. So in other words, if you show them that they're not, you know what they're going to do? Boy, it's a pretty blue sky. No, it's not. This is the person that's going to push back against you. This is the person, no matter how many facts, what's that phrase? Don't confuse me with the facts. They're just, no matter what you do, they're going to be right, and they're going to fight you for it. And if you don't agree with them, they believe anybody who disagrees with them is their enemy. They can't have a dialogue. They can't be in a conversation. Now, this is, some of y'all are saying, Terry, 3 weeks ago when you preached on this, that sounded like me, but this sounds like, and that sounds like. Everybody has a little bit of all of it. The mask is the one that's predominantly you. But so moms and dads, husbands and wives, remember that last one. Back up one for me, please, ma'am. Just because your spouse disagrees with you does not make them the enemy. Just because your parent disagrees with you does not make them the enemy. Just because your coworker disagrees with you does not make them the enemy. Process, and that's a hard thing for some folks to process. The aggressor has a hard time processing this one. And so as a result of all these, they drive people away, and then they complain about how lonely they are because no one wants to get close. Because if you get close, it's like hugging a sticker bush. Who wants to do that? In just a moment, we're going to come to the table, and we're going to invite you to come on. I'm going to invite y'all to let the children come in.